I know that you've seen this image before, so I won't waste your time. Please just click the button. So the first thing that you can do to improve your positioning is to play in positions where you have cover. And there's a few different reasons that you want to do this. When you have cover, you give yourself a lot of different options. One of these options is being able to have a second chance in a gunfight. If you peek out and you miss your first few shots, you can fall back towards your cover and then have a second chance by peeking out again. If you're out in the open, you really don't have this opportunity because you're just stuck out in the open with nowhere to fall back to. Another reason you want to do this is something called Peeker's Advantage, and this is basically something where, due to the way that online play works, if you peek out towards an enemy in the open, you're going to see them first and you're going to have the jump on them in the gunfight. So because of this, when you play behind cover, you can sort of peek out and have an advantage over teams trying to peek into you. So that's why when you're holding angles like this, you don't want to just hold static. You want to sort of fall back behind your cover and then peek again. So this way, when the enemies do come around the corner, you'll have the peeker's advantage on them. Another reason why you want to give yourself cover is because of the fact that when you have a lot of cover, you can take fights from a lot of different angles. And the perfect example of that is this pit position on Inferno. If you peek out normally, you can take a fight towards lane. If you peek out towards the left side, you can watch an apartments push. If you come out towards the left side here, you can hold across into sight as well as the apartments. If you come into mini pit here, if the enemy is wrapping arch side, you could take a fight using the mini pit as cover, like this. When you play in these positions where you have a lot of cover, you have so many different opportunities to isolate angles and take one-on-one fights. If you play out in the open, like next to the truck like this, you really don't have this option. I mean, yes, you can peek out like this, but you're still exposed to a lot of different angles. So that's why the more cover you give yourself, the easier it is to stay alive and the easier it is to isolate fights. So the second thing that you can do to improve your positioning is play in positions where you can easily fall back. And this is important especially if you're an AWPer, but this definitely applies to rifles as well. But it's especially important with an AWP because the AWP can only fire one shot at a time. If I peek this angle here into the top of T connector and I take a shot, if there are more players here, I'm not going to be able to kill them because the AWP only shoots one bullet at a time. So because of this, after taking a shot, I'm going to want to reposition. And due to the way that angles on the A side of overpass works, it's very easy for me to do so. So then I can fall back into a different position, like maybe front bathrooms, or maybe divider, or maybe towards the back of bathrooms, or on top of here. And so you can do the exact same thing. You can take a shot, and then you can reposition. This is especially important because if you stay in the same spot for too long, then you're going to get pre-fired, you're going to get naded, someone might throw a Molotov towards your position. You always want to change your position after getting a kill and keep your opponents guessing. By doing this, you not only stay alive, you not only get more kills, but you give more time for your teammates to rotate from the other bomb site. So another thing that you can do to improve your positioning is understanding when you should use off angles. Now, for those of you who don't know, an off angle is basically in a position that's sort of out in the open that no one really expects. It's not really somewhere where you have a lot of cover, but because it's not a very common spot, you can likely get away with a kill from playing these positions. And I picked the A site of Nuke for this example because there are so many different weird angles that you can play, including this spot right here next to the hut. And you want to use these off angles in the mid to late round situations where either you know that the enemy team does not have a lot of utility, or if it's low numbers and there's not as much coordinated spacing, so let's say it's like a 2 versus 2 or a 3 versus 3, I might play an angle like this in front of the hut to catch an enemy off guard. I can get maybe 1 or 2 kills from this angle and set my teammates up to win the round. Another reason you might want to play off angles is just to punish people who rely too much on pre-firing. if I'm someone who always comes out hut and I'm always pre-firing this silo position, you can easily punish me by just sitting here in this corner. I'm going to swing out to peek this spot as usual, and I'm not going to be expecting this guy here, and he's going to take me out. So don't play these sort of off angles in the early round because it's really easy for people to throw in utility and blind you. But in the late round situations where there's less likely to be some sort of execution, then off angles are really useful. This next tip is about always changing your positioning and being unpredictable. And for this example, I'm going to look at a demo from a student I had a session with on proguides.com, link in the description if you're interested. But jumping into this real quick, you'll notice that this guy peeks the top of connector like this, which is not a bad angle. He gets a kill, reloads, and then he re-engages, gets a second kill, and then reloads and falls back. Pretty solid, honestly. But the problem is, the very next round he does the exact same thing. Gets a kill, does a pretty good job, gets shot by a scout, gets this kill too. But he tries it a third time, and if this is the point where he gets punished, this guy kills him with an up-top connector, and then he just gets completely shut down. No matter what position you're playing, there's always going to be several different ways you can switch up your play and keep your opponents guessing. For using this connector position as an example, you could play towards the stairs and support your A player if they're not really active in middle. You can drop a smoke towards the middle of mid and use it to peek towards the underpass. You can double click a smoke in the corner here and look into underpass like this. This is a one-way into underpass, and it's really difficult for the underpass players to see you. You can play this angle to peek out towards the middle like we just saw in the example. You can also peek towards the bottom of connector as well. It's less likely that you're going to be seen from there because the only way to be seen is for people to swing out top middle. You know, you have a lot of different options, and you have to make sure that you're playing different positions every couple rounds so that the enemy can't predict what you're doing. If you go for this same peek every round as you saw in the demo, eventually the other team is going to catch on and you're going to be punished. So the last thing that we're going to talk about is what's referred to as a one and done spot. As the name implies, it's a spot where you will probably get a kill, but then you're going to die. And these are positions like here on the B side of S2 in this corner, where if someone comes out in front of you, you're going to get that kill because they're going to be more concerned about clearing this B site. But after you get this kill, the teammate behind them is going to understand where you are, and then you're trapped. They're going to be able to pre-fire you. You have no real way of falling back after revealing yourself from this position. So it doesn't seem like a great idea, since one-for-one trades usually favor the terrorist side, but you do want to keep these sorts of spots in mind, because one and done spots are really useful when you have a man advantage. If you have a 3 versus 2 in the mid to late round, a 1-for-1 trade is perfectly fine, because if you trade 1-for-1 in a 3v2, it becomes a 2v1, your team still has the man advantage, and they could retake this bomb site 2 versus 1. So if you ever find yourself in a man advantage situation on the CT side, keep these sort of positions in mind to, keep the man advantage in your team's favor.